Da, 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 da. Come on, blue light. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ and Friends. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and my friend today is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau. She is the author of a brand new book called A Year of Compassion, 52 Weeks of Living Zero Waste, Plant-Based, and cruelty-free. Please welcome her to the show. Hi, Colleen. It's so nice to see you again.
Thanks, AJ. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it's been so long. But I think people know who you are. But in case they haven't seen you on my show before, or if they don't, maybe just briefly tell people who you are.
Sure. My name is Colleen Patrick-Goudreau, and I have been on a mission to empower people to live more compassionately for the last 30 years. I have been doing this through cooking classes, through cookbooks, through books, through podcasts, through speaking engagements, all the ways I can inspire people to not live according to my values of compassion and wellness, but to live according to their values of compassion and wellness. So I kind of focus on debunking the myths and just distilling all of the things that can feel really overwhelming into a way to make it feel really possible and joyful. Because why do things that are the right things to do if it doesn't also feel good? And the good news is all of the things that you talk about, that, the way we live in terms of the way we eat, but also all of the things I talk about in A Year of Compassion, it feels really good at the same time.
Well, you're known as the joyful vegan.
Yes.
When I first remember you, God, it was so long ago. Didn't you used to work with with another person, right? Were we like compassionate cooks? Wasn't that your moniker back then?
Yeah, and it's still the name of my LLC because it's when I registered my LLC, it was Compassionate Cooks. So Compassionate Cooks is how I started when I was doing the cooking classes.
And I think you might have had shorter hair, but I remember watching you way back then, and I also remember you from being a presenter for the McDougall program, the live-in program.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes, had short hair. Yes, started doing my work. When I became vegan, and I always say I didn't become vegan as much as I removed the blocks to the compassion that was always inside of me, because I really want to convey the idea that I don't think we become something different when we have this transformation and we have this experience of awakening. And when I did, I had been vegetarian prior to that. But when you become vegan, when you just kind of remove all those blocks, it's just different. And so I just very quickly and immediately wanted to share the good news with people. And so that's how I started doing it, just kind of tabling. And then people asked how to cook. You know the story. People want to know how to do it, not just why to do it.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's so cool because I think you and Miyoko, you guys are similar to me. Like you both are just like very heart-centered people. And like I think about both these not starting out, but you were teaching at the McDougall program and you both are like just have exploded into super vegan stardom. So congratulations. Did you enjoy teaching for the McDougall program? I'm doing it now, but it's virtual though only.
Are you doing it virtually? I haven't. Yeah, I stopped quite a few years ago before COVID. I loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. I would drive up an hour from here to Santa Rosa, packing all of my cooking equipment, as you know, packing all the food, prepping all the food. I absolutely loved it because you just have this incredible captive audience who's just so eager to learn and so eager to change. I loved every time I went up there.
Yeah, I miss him.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, we all do. So tell us, what inspired you to write this particular book?
Well, I'm on my own journey. I keep learning things and I keep wanting to do better and I keep wanting to, make a difference in ways that I hadn't thought of before. And so a lot of my work comes out of my own living. And I had had an experience and a journey around zero waste back in 2018, where I just kind of realized that I could do a lot more in terms of reducing food waste, reducing my, plastic consumption, just in ways that I could live more sustainably. So it came out of that. And it also just comes out of, again, just this desire to give people tools to live compassionately and healthfully and not be overwhelmed by it, and to orient to all the things we can do as opposed to focusing on all the things that aren't being done. I just feel like we spend too much time on what everybody out there is doing wrong, as opposed to feeling the power of all the things we can do here in our lives, in our backyards, in our kitchens, that are impactful and, like I said, also feel good. And the thing about this book is, this isn't 101 ways you can live compassionately and zero waste and sustainably. It's 52 weeks. And I say that because you could do 100 things, but they're not always going to be as impactful as the other. So what this does is say, here are the things that are the most impactful things you can do. Do it on a weekly basis. You're not getting a new thing to do every day, but every week you could probably reorient to a new way. And then in the end, you're probably going to pick maybe, 5 that become part of your routine, and maybe the next year you do more. So it's just another tool for people to feel that they have power and agency to create the world they say they want to have.
Yeah. Well, in your experience, what do you think stops some people from living more compassionately, even when they say that that's what they want to do?
Mm. I think our self-perception does. I think we limit ourselves because I think we think we're done. You know, I have never ever heard someone not say, I don't eat a lot of meat, dairy, and eggs. I've never heard someone not say, we have this perception of ourselves that we're doing well, and we're doing good things, and we are. But we limit ourselves because I think we think we're doing enough. And so I think it's our own excuses, it's our own self-perception of it's our own self kind of denial. So, that's kind of the journey I'm on. I mean, that was what happened with me with zero waste. I was doing a lot of things. We have gray water, we have rainwater. I've been vegan, for almost 30 years. We drive an electric vehicle. We can walk when we don't drive. Like I was doing all the things and then I went, "Oh, wait, there are a lot of other things I could be doing and want to do." It didn't come out of obligation. It came out of interest and joy. So I do think we can really limit ourselves. And so this is just a way to say there's a lot more you can do. And again, it's about manifesting who you think you really are. If you already think you're compassionate, then okay, what does that look like when it's manifested? And let's not stop that journey. It's going to go on until we die.
Yeah. Well, but compassion can feel a little bit abstract. How do you turn that into something actionable?
Well, I've talked a lot about the difference between kind of sympathy, empathy, and compassion. And compassion, actually, by definition, is action. So I do think compassion is a word that is really misunderstood. I think it's a concept that's really misunderstood, especially when it comes to how we interact with each other and how we think about people who don't vote the way we do or live the way we do or eat the way we do. I think we have a real mistaken idea of what compassion is. We withhold compassion for people who don't agree with us, and we withhold compassion for people who don't agree with us in the name of compassion. We say we care too much, so therefore we're not going to give them our compassion, which is not what compassion is about. Compassion is unconditional by definition, and compassion is action oriented by definition. So, how do you turn it into something from abstract to concrete? Action. Action. If you say you don't support animal cruelty, then what is your action that manifests that? If you say that, you want to support, that you think there should be more, habitat for wildlife, what are you doing to create habitat for wildlife? If you think there should be laws that conserve water and public lands, what are you doing to support, to conserve water and to create more habitat for animals, right? So it's about understanding that the power is in you, not waiting for someone else to come along and do it. And by virtue of you wanting to live compassionately, that means you have to take action.
Yeah. Well, you don't always feel like somebody should write a book about living vegan in a non-vegan world. And I find that there are some vegans that don't have compassion for people that aren't yet vegan.
Yep. There are vegans who don't have compassion for people who are vegan. So,
Absolutely.
I mean, I always say, and this kind of goes along the lines of what you've been going through, AJ, because I always say, I have said for all these years, you don't stop becoming human when you become vegan. And the idea that there's any kind of that this is some, that it's about perfection is so completely opposite. We're still human. And so of course we're gonna, be unkind, we're gonna say things, we're gonna gossip, we're gonna be judgmental, we're gonna get sick, we're not gonna be perfect. We're still human. So of course, I mean, but I can't worry about what other people do and say. I can only be the compassionate person that I want to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So Was there a topic in the book of the 52 weeks that was more challenging to write about than any of the others?
Not more challenging. I love the research with some of some of it. I really wanted to go deep to really help people kind of understand, kind of the plastic issue. I think, with good intentions, we can get obsessed about plastic straws when really, is that really going to have the impact, that we want to have? No, the answer is no. But do read that chapter on reducing plastic consumption. So I really appreciate the work that's being done by data analysts to really understand the impact that we're having and to also really tell the good news and celebrate the good news. So there was nothing challenging. I would say that the chapter I am most aware of possibly being a cause for vegans boycotting it is a chapter that's called Eat Less Meat. There's also a chapter called Take a Vegan Challenge, but there's a chapter called Eat Less Meat. And I'm sure there's going to be some cranky vegans who don't want me to say that because they want me to just say go vegan, go vegan, go vegan. And the truth is, I've been vegan for 30 years and advocating for as long. And hasn't really changed much. And I don't really think that just not meeting people where they're at is going to have the impact. The truth is, if half the population ate, reduced their meat consumption like twice a week, just didn't eat meat twice a week, half the population, that would have more significant impact on water use, on land use, on all the things than if a small percentage of the population went vegan. So you have to just look at the numbers. Of course, the best thing we can do for our health, for the animals, for the environment, the best thing we can do is to stop eating animal flesh and fluids. Period, full stop. But we know that's not, people aren't just going to turn off the switch and that it happen. We know that doesn't happen. So what does that mean? Okay, meet them where they're at. Okay, so let me tell you which meat, like which of the animal flesh actually has the most impact in terms of water use and land use. Okay, that's beef and lamb. Because people always say, where should I start? Okay, can you start there? Start by not consuming, beef and lamb. Next after that would be chickens and turkeys. Next after that would be dairy and eggs. So if you need that, then here's the data for you. But, if you're ready, just take a vegan challenge because I think that's what really shifts habits anyway. The point is, I want to be here for people to be able to support them where they are in their journey. And that means I'm going to say something like, could you just start with reducing meat? And so, some vegans might not like that chapter, but that's not for them. Just skip it.
Yeah. Was there, when you think about everything that's going on in the world today, was there a particular chapter or theme of the book that you feel is especially urgent in today's world?
In terms of Yes, in terms of what we can do individually, I mean, we need governments to change policies. We need conservation organizations to conserve land. We need all of these things. But as individuals, what we can absolutely do, especially for human-caused climate change, is reduce our use of fossil fuels and again, eliminate and reduce our consumption of animal products. It's just the bottom line. Those are the two largest culprits. And so what does that mean for us individually? If we're in the middle of buying a car, look at electric vehicles, walk instead of drive, take public transportation, get a hybrid if you can't get the electric vehicle. If you're renovating your house, look at the heating options and look at getting a heat pump instead of a furnace. I mean, so there's all these things that we can do individually that are happening. I mean, the cost of getting things like solar and other renewable energies for our homes is lower than it's ever been. The cost of electric vehicles is lower than it's ever been, and it's going to keep getting lower. So, just as consumers, we have so much power and we just need to make these changes. We can't wait. We need the policies from government. We need the, organizations. We need everybody to do their part. But if you want to know the biggest ones that are the most urgent, absolutely fossil fuels and related to that, meat consumption.
Thank you. And we should tell people where to get the book and when it's coming out. It's tomorrow, isn't it?
It's coming out March 25th, so very soon.
Okay.
March,
That would be 22. That's next Tuesday.
that's next Tuesday, but people can pre-order it from wherever they get books.
Great. Thank you. That is wonderful. So I'm curious if there's ever been a time where your compassion has been tested that you can talk about.
No, my compassion's never tested, AJ. I'm perfect all the time.
Oh, good. Thank you. Me
Yeah,
too.
interview over. That's it. I mean, my compassion's tested all the time. I mean, if compassion is about understanding that what I do impacts someone else, and that could mean if I get annoyed at someone or, feel I take something personally or feel slighted, or, I mean, in all those ways. I mean, and I talk about that in the beginning of the book. My favorite chapters are always the forewords because I really get to kind of tell you exactly why I think this is an important framing, and especially, compassion, because I think it's so misunderstood. But for me, compassion is about connection. It's about understanding that we literally impact, like we're like waves in the ocean. We are not disconnected from one another. And so everything I do has an impact on someone or something else. And so, yeah, that means relationships, that means, friends, neighbors, family, parents, husband. So of course, I mean, I'm challenged, to again, to just be the person I want to be. On that note, I would say, I mean, this is very personal, but I've shared this before with my audience about I had a very difficult relationship with my mother for many, many years, and we struggled for many years and did all the things and worked in therapy and all of it. And for years, we would keep trying, and sometimes do better than others. But the shift for me with my mother, and I think this is just a lesson for me and for anyone, for anything in their lives, the shift for me with my mother was when I stopped wishing she would be the mother I wanted her to be. And I started asking, how can I be the daughter I want to be? And so again, it's about this idea of like, it's not about what anybody else does or doesn't do. It's about who do we want to be and how do we want to show up. So that's how I try to live my life on a daily basis. I fail all the time and I succeed. I succeed a lot of the time as well.
Yeah. This is your eighth book, isn't it?
It is.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations on that. So if you
Okay.
guys have any questions for Colleen, whether you're watching on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, just drop them in the chat. I can't talk today. I cannot speak. I don't know what is wrong with me. That's what happens when I don't do shows every single day. So, okay, let's see. What's your advice to people who want to help, but they feel like that their actions just aren't going to make a big difference?
So you know, I think we are at a time when it's really popular and trendy, and I think it's really unfortunate that I think the what gets the most amount of attention is how terrible things are, as opposed to all the things we can do and all the things that have been done. If you think that things are worse today in a lot of the areas that we need to keep doing better at, then you're not reading history. You're not paying attention to what's already been done. If we thought nothing would get better or has gotten better, none of us would wake up in the morning. So if you in any way feel disempowered or cynical or hopeless or in despair, all you need to do is stop paying attention to every bit of news that is telling you that everything is going to hell in a handbasket. Go look at some good news. It's there. It's just that we keep focusing on and we let these waves of bad news just constantly rush over us and just infiltrate our brains as opposed to proactively going to look at what has been done that's working. All of these amazing, resourceful, innovative people who are out there creating solutions for us. Thank you. And focus on that and just get some perspective. So, perspective, history, pay attention, stop being so passive in terms of reading the news every day. That is not engagement, that's just enragement. Do not conflate enragement for engagement. So yeah, just take control and be proactive and have perspective and and be willing to actually see that things actually are working and we can do more of it.
I like that. That's not engagement. That's just enragement. And I just don't even watch the news. I mean, I don't even have a TV. That helps me in the world, I'll tell you.
Yep.
Wow. So in this book, you give 52 weeks of practical inspiration. And one of the things you talk about is conducting a personal waste and consumption audit. That sounds a little daunting. What does that mean and how do we do it?
Oh, it's goes along what I said before that everyone says they don't eat a lot of meat, dairy, and eggs, and yet you don't know how much you eat until you stop. It's the same thing with waste. You don't know how much you generate until you actually pay attention to it. So it's just a matter of paying attention to your habits. We all say we want to live more mindfully and consciously. This is an opportunity to do that. It just means for a week, just make note of what you're eating, what you're throwing out, and what the kind of categories are, right? So that when you assess, because of course we also, don't think we throw a lot of things out. No, I recycle everything. One of the chapters is on wish cycling versus recycling, because a lot of us will throw something into the recycling bin that actually isn't going to get recycled, but we just think it will or hope it will. So when we have a better idea of what we're generating, we have a better idea of where we can reduce. So it shouldn't be overwhelming. It's consider it, gamify it, like consider it fun and an opportunity to get to know yourself more and to get to know your habits more, because it's only when we know what our habits are that we can change our habits.
Thank you. One of the things I thought interesting you talked about in the book was humane critter control, managing uninvited guests. And there are people who are vegans, even ethical vegans, but when it comes to like, exterminating or killing bugs and stuff, they don't put that in the same category. So what do you do? Because like in my case, I'm actually like really allergic to mosquitoes, like really like life, not life threatening, but if I don't know how to manage them without really hurting myself, because I have
Mm.
these like golf ball size things, and then I have to go on steroids. And, it's such a dilemma as an ethical vegan because is it them or me?
Look, don't do nothing because you can't do everything. If you are going to be so uncomfortable and break out from a mosquito bite, put the mosquito repellent on. Like that's a no-brainer. But when it comes to things like animals who are living in our attic, animals who, are living in our basement or under our deck or in ways that can be destructive to our home, it's really a matter of understanding that, first of all, entropy just exists. Like our, houses they're gonna try and find ways to get in because they're gonna want to nest, because they want to get warm, because basically they want to protect their babies, whatever they're raising young. So it's a matter of really just shifting our thinking about understanding that they're not trying to hurt you, they're not trying to mess up your wiring. We've had rats almost chew through our electrical main, which is quite frightening. We did wind up getting a conduit because if they bit through the electrical main, and then, I mean, there could obviously be a fire, frightening. But the problem isn't the rats. The problem is that there's holes, there's ways for them to get in. So you just have to identify, and it takes time. It took us a year to finally evict the rats who were in our attic. It took us a year. And so the main thing was finding all of the ways they were getting in and then closing those up. Now, of course, they can come back again. We'll have to keep an eye on that, and I can hear and listen. But when we were identifying those holes, we were using humane traps. I know not everyone wants to do that, but it really gives you an opportunity to maybe also kind of, to dispel any kind of fear you have around these animals. We were live trapping. I was checking the traps every day. You're gonna love this, AJ. I'm not even kidding you. I am not kidding you. For the live traps for the rats, I was putting in peanut butter, and I actually bought some dairy-based cheese because I was like, they're not eating the peanut butter. I have to, like, they're not eating anything. I have to get. So they never ate the dairy-based cheese. I bought Miyoko's cheese, and that's what they ate.
Oh my, well, because they do have good taste, apparently.
Discerning taste. Yeah, $8 a wheel, like, cheese for the rats. They loved it. And we, I would live trap them, I would release them. And I want to say this too, please, I hope everyone hears this. A lot of people who come and do trapping for you, who say they're humane trappers and they are driving away with that animal, it is illegal to drive away with a wild animal and release them on a site other than where they were found. What they're doing is gassing them or drowning them or electrocuting them. So do not believe any trapper who takes the animal away and says, no, 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 we're going to go humanely release him. It's illegal. It's illegal in most states, but it is just not what's happening. They are not going to go find a pretty park for these animals to go live in. So the most humane thing you could do is, once you live trap them, is to release them back on your property. But the reason they're in your house is because, well, because this is their home too. It's because there's an access point. So you got to find the access point, close it up. And so, yeah, I talk about a lot of the different ways you can do that in the book. And I talk about how to also identify whether it's a squirrel or a rat or a mouse or, whatever. So it's really different depending on what the animal is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we're in their territory in a lot of times. We encroached upon their territory.
That's absolutely right. And then we just don't, we need to coexist peacefully. One of the things I talk about in the book, and this is really important too, this is around food waste, is we attract animals, wild animals, with our food in the garbage cans, and then we blame them for being, opportunistic. And then we trap them, poison them, at least, demonize them, raccoons, I'm thinking of. First of all, food doesn't belong in the garbage. You're literally attracting them, and then you're blaming them for, coming and eating. So one of the best ways we can cohabitate with wildlife, I don't care if you're in an apartment or a house, rural, suburban, urban, doesn't matter, is do not put food in the garbage can. And when I went through this journey myself with kind of shifting the way we handle our waste in our house, it changed everything. We don't have any wet food going on. There's nothing that is attractive to a rat or a raccoon or any wild animal in our garbage can. All of it gets composted, all of it gets properly discarded. So those are the very simple things that we can do, which is, better for them and better for us.
Yeah, I agree. You talk about creating a wildlife habitat. How do we do that? Or providing one?
Yeah, that's one of the things is to don't attract them in ways that are negative, but attract them in ways that are positive. We not everybody has a home, not everybody has a garden, not everybody has a yard, but I'm going to speak to the majority of people who have some kind of outdoor space. And if you don't, then you can work with your municipality and you can work with your city. But for anyone who has any kind of outdoor space, there are so many things we can do to support wildlife and create a habitat for them. Why are we relying on national parks and national governments to do this? If every single one of us treated our property like what Douglas Tallamy calls a homegrown national park. If each of us understood the power that we have in our own yards to plant native plants, plants that co-evolved with the pollinators and the animals who are on, in this region, and provide some water, provide some safe place for them to raise their young or hide from a predator. I talk about the details in the book. If everyone did that, E.O. Wilson, who is just an amazing, amazing ecologist, entomologist mostly, but he wrote a book before he died, and he talked about how in order to really preserve the world we all say we want to preserve, we need to set aside 50% of land for wildlife. Now, that sounds like a huge number. And he in the book talks about how he came up with that number. But if you just imagine your property and you have a lawn, if you removed 50% of that lawn and in place of that, you put native, right, native plants that attract all of the native pollinators and all of the wildlife, and you put some water out and you leave some brush and some dead logs. If everybody did 50%, then we could actually achieve that. So again, we just have so much power in our own lives that I just get really excited about.
Thanks. Your work's always been about progress, not perfection. How does that apply to this book?
It applies in the way that, you know, don't do nothing because you can't do everything. So first of all, just do something, anything, start where you're at. And we're never going to be perfect. I mean, I'm in the process of rewilding our space. I have remorse over the fact that I have planted a lot of non-native plants that now I'm just seeing as, kind of inanimate objects because that's all they are. They're not supporting anyone. They're not supporting the native fauna, but I'm adding now all of the native flora to support the native fauna. And I just have to forgive myself. Like, I mean, literally, I made some mistakes. I mean, that's just what it looks like. So just being kind to ourselves, doing something, not nothing, knowing that we're not be able to do everything, just being gentle with ourselves. I mean, it's the self-compassion that we have to also practice. And it's just not a perfect world, but there's a lot we can do. And I think that's exciting.
The plastic issue comes up a lot, but like, what is the answer for that? Because this is how they're selling their items, and especially if people want to save money by shopping at big box stores like Costco, it's like, how do people get around this plastic issue and still buy healthy organic produce?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and it's also kind of understanding where the majority of plastic in oceans comes from, and the majority comes from the fishing industry. I mean, it just does. I'm assuming most of your audience, I'll speak for myself, we live in an industrialized nation that has pretty good waste management, and our cities. Where waste in the ocean is showing up is mostly through the fishing industry and mostly from countries that don't have waste management policies. So obsessing over something like a plastic straw or even the plastic bag that you get from organic produce, trying to eat healthier, that's not where I want to see people, beat themselves up at all. If you really want to reduce plastic consumption, don't support the fishing industry. Like that's a really good place to start, right? That's the biggest impact you're going to have. But in terms of our everyday lives, so it's about reducing what we bring in, and it's about knowing the materials that are more recyclable than others and more valuable in the marketplace than others. And also it means what we do with the discard. So it's what we bring in and how we discard what we bring in, kind of knowing that like glass can be recycled again and again and again. So recycling glass and reusing glass it's a really valuable material versus plastic is not as valuable because it can only be recycled once because most most recycling plants use what's called mechanical recycling as opposed to chemical recycling. Chemical recycling is possible, but it's more expensive. And chemical recycling for plastic would mean that they could recycle plastic again and again and again and again, but they don't. So if you don't have recycling in your city, or if you don't know if that plastic is going to get recycled, there are companies like TerraCycle that actually will take your product, like like empty plastic bags with cosmetic, empty cosmetic plastic, so many different things. So it's TerraCycle. And then also just reducing the amount. So going to the, store with reusable bags. And also if you're kind of making a choice between ketchup in a plastic bottle, ketchup in a glass bottle, get the glass bottle. So it's kind of knowing the materials. And then another company I will say, they're not everywhere, but they're growing all the time. We use them and I'm so grateful for them, is Ridwell. And Ridwell actually takes your plastic film, so kind of the plastic that you can kind of stretch, so you might, like a plastic Ziploc bag kind of thing, and the thicker flexible plastic, like, tofu would come in or something like that. And they take it and they are the ones who have the partnerships to do the proper recycling so that it actually can be turned into something else. But really the main thing is to reduce it if you can. And like I said, do the best you can. It's not going to be perfect.
Yesterday I posted a photo on social media of a smoothie I was drinking, and a lot of people said, "Oh, I can't believe you're drinking from plastic." But I've asked the owner if I could bring in a reuse, because I said I would come here more often, but I feel so guilty. And I thought there was some law in California where they had to allow you to bring in a cup for that. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think they do. I think, well, they're not, the thing is, it may very well be a compostable because I think the law in California is now, and maybe it hasn't been enacted yet, all statewide, but that they have to provide only compostables. They can't use styrofoam, like that's definitely illegal. But that's the thing too. Even just, I mean, a little bit of greenwashing. I hate to say all the compostable plates and cups that we get. If you're not putting them in a system that actually properly composts them, they're just going to rot in a landfill just like anything else. So you still want to be, still have mindful disposal when you get. So for us in Oakland, I mean, we're in a big city. We have an incredible compost system. We can put the compostable plates, we can put the compostable, pizza boxes, we could put cardboard, we could put all the browns and greens in our compost, and it's just going to get composted. Then we can actually even go get that compost. Not everybody has that option, but I do in the book talk about things you can do at home if you don't have a municipal compost system.
You talk about I love decluttering in general. Nothing makes me happier than decluttering. But you talk about decluttering the fridge, our fridge. How do we do that?
I love decluttering so much. I do, I do. Yeah, so decluttering the fridge, it's not necessarily just about, keeping things neat. It's about reducing food waste. And so again, it's kind of like if you don't have the knowledge, if you don't know what you have, then you're not going to use it. You're not going to eat it. I love challenges. I love challenging myself. I love the challenge of, when you say I have to go to the store, I have nothing to eat in the house. I bet you have 30 days more worth of food in your house that you can eat in your cupboard, in your refrigerator, in your pantry, what have you. So it's a matter of making sure everything you want is accessible. So It kind of means cleaning out your fridge, organizing it in a way that's going to be really easy for you. For instance, when you come home from the grocery store and you have all this gorgeous new produce, instead of just putting it in the refrigerator and then pushing into the back of the refrigerator all the produce that's already there, swap it around. It's called first in, first out. So you swap it around. So the stuff that's already been in the refrigerator, you put forward, and then the stuff that's new, you put in the back. So it's all these just little things that we can do to prolong the life of the vegetables, to eat the vegetables and the fruit that we need to eat so that they're not composting in the refrigerator. And all of these things are going to save money. They're going to reduce waste, and they're going to make us healthier because we're eating the things, that are good for us.
Thank you. One of the viewers is saying, OMG, I've always loved her. Her podcast was amazing. Not was, you're still doing it, right?
18 years in, but I think a lot of the early listeners, they've moved on because now, everybody has a podcast and there's lots of podcasts to listen to. So I think my early listeners have moved on, but I'm still podcasting 18 years in.
How often do you do it? And are you on all the platforms? If people want to find you, I'll put that in the show notes.
AJ, yeah, every other week, Food for Thought is the podcast.
Nice. Who is the most intriguing person you've had on the podcast?
Me, because I don't interview people.
Oh, okay.
It's-
Ever, ever, ever?
In the 18 years, I've interviewed four people. I've interviewed four people. But it's just not a format. I've always done kind of, it's more spoken word and just more inspiration and information.
Nice. All right. Let's see. Okay. So there's a difference between toxic positivity and real hope. So how do we hold on to hope without ignoring reality?
Hold on to hope without ignoring reality. I don't understand the idea of toxic positivity. I honestly don't.
Well, that was a question that was given to me by your team to ask you. So,
Oh, I see. Oh no, it's fine that you ask it. I just think the idea that we take something positive and turn it into something toxic is just, I just don't understand. It's kind of this misconception that if you're hopeful, you're not paying attention. That if you're in any way positive about the world, that you're delusional. And so therefore, if you're hopeful, you must be denying reality and you must be, undermining people's concerns and fears. And I would just say, no, that's not what I do, and that's not how I live. There is real reason to hope. There is real reason to believe that things are better, and we need to do a lot of work. But that's the point. It's never going to be perfect. One of the things I say in the book is, I mean, and I say this in the Joyful Vegan as well. It is not a perfect world. It is never going to be heaven. But that doesn't mean you still don't work to make it a better place. So I just don't agree with this idea that, you know, that if you're not angry all the time, you're not paying attention. I just think it's a cynical way to see the world. And I think it's a really good excuse to just stay cranky you know, and just not think, there's anything to do. I just disagree. I think there's so many reasons to be hopeful, and it lies in each one of us.
Diane would like to know if you could come to her house and help her declutter. She lives, I believe, in Tucson.
I will not be coming to Tucson in August, but no, I give tips in the book. In that chapter, I provide tools like what you can get, like little lazy Susans, so that you can kind of easily see things in the refrigerator because these are deep, deep refrigerators, right? So no, I give tips, and if it still doesn't work for you, Diane, then I'll just have to come to Tucson.
People are asking because they know you live in the Bay Area. What are your current favorite restaurants in your area?
Well, Millennium Still, as we talked about before we went live, Millennium Still, Eric Tucker at Millennium is a master like no one else. It blows my mind. We were there for my birthday, I guess, just a couple weeks ago. And Eric came out because we always want to say hi to him. And I did. I mean, like I threw my hands up just saying, how do you keep doing this? Like his food is just so amazing and it's all seasonal and he goes to the farmer's market and he picks it himself and it's just innovative and creative and he's amazing. So Millennium remains a favorite. Wild Seed in San Francisco is great, and there's one in Palo Alto now as well. So I really do like Wild Seed. And I will say, my other favorite restaurant, it's not a vegan restaurant. My favorite pizza, we get pizza every Friday. We're huge pizza lovers, and it's called Bare Knuckle in Oakland. And they have like a ton of, I want to say they have a ton of vegan pizzas, but I hate even saying that because it just means they have a lot of the plant-based meats and they do use a cashew-based cheese for their cheese. But the original pizza was plant-based. The original pizza was a marinara pizza, and my favorite pizza when I go to Italy is just the bread with the sauce and some basil and oregano. But what Bare Knuckle has is the best crust and the best sauce, and they do use Butcher's Son's cashew cheese for their margarita. It's my favorite.
Nice. Well, thank you for mentioning Wild Seed because I'll be going to Palo Alto for my cancer treatment,
Okay.
and I do need restaurant recommendations for Palo Alto. So that's good to know.
I have more for you.
Yeah. So wait, you talked about what was it you talked? Oh, attending animal-free circuses. So of course, where are those though?
Oh gosh. Well, since I mean, look, the biggest animal circus, ever in the world closed down, Ringling Brothers, obviously. So yay to that. But even before then, there were circuses like Cirque du Soleil. And a lot of human performances. So I would just say focus on human performance, whether it's music, whether it's, acrobatics. There's so many different things, especially to take children to. I mean, anything that's similar to Cirque du Soleil, I would say focus on. So it's that kind of thing that I'm talking about is just like, incredible performances by human beings as opposed to really sad, depressing, horrific performances by wild animals.
Yeah. No, there are some vegans that still, I mean, not to judge, because we can talk about judgment, but still do things that other vegans would judge as not being favorable if you're a vegan, like riding horses, keeping horses, things like that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Talk about.
yeah. Okay. I love that you talked about baking better without eggs because especially now, I mean, I think it's a blessing that egg prices are soaring through the roof because then people will maybe turn to some of these vegan options that you mentioned.
Yeah, you know this already. I mean, during the war, for instance, World War II, right? I mean, people were rationing all around, the United States, the UK. And so people were baking all the time without chicken's eggs. Maybe some people had backyard chickens, fine, fine, fine. But the idea that you need eggs for all of the things that we use them for, moisture, leavening, right? Fat, flavor. Implies that that's the only way to get moisture and leavening and fat and flavor. And of course, they're not. So baking with eggs became prevalent after the war when the United States became, a superpower and had more money than it knew what to do with. And so all of these kind of, convenience items in the 50s, it's when a lot of these kind of boxed, convenience items, pervaded the grocery stores. And so it required eggs, but that's not what was required for baking. So again, it's not just about like shifting your behavior, it's about shifting your thinking. It's not that you can bake without eggs, it's that baking without eggs means that you're just focusing on the point of the where the moisture, the leavening, and you get the leavening from baking soda, you get the leavening from baking powder, you get the leavening from a combination of baking powder and or baking soda and vinegar. You get the fat and the moisture from oil or bananas or dates or whatever, right? So the point is, it's not about the eggs, it's about the effect of the eggs. And if you focus on the effect of the eggs, then it's very easy to replace them and not use them and save money and save chicken.
I remember growing up, I had a Hershey's cookbook, a baking book, and a lot of the recipes, like you say, during World War II, when egg prices were also high, people already knew back then, almost 100 years ago, how to bake without eggs.
Animal products have always been symbols of luxury. They have always been. So for anyone who ever says, "Oh, it's really expensive to be vegan," you're thinking of convenience foods and prepackaged foods. And prepackaged foods are more expensive whether they are plant-based or not. They're more expensive because you're paying for the packaging and you're paying for the convenience. But when we're talking about whole grains and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and legumes and herbs and spices, it is still less expensive, always will be, because it is really expensive to bring animals into this world, raise them, feed them, treat them, kill them. It is so much more expensive to do that, and the costs go beyond dollars, right? We know that. So, this idea, I mean, you look at any culture across any point in history, and meat has always been Meat and dairy and eggs have always been a luxury item, except for those exceptions, like I said, when people might have backyard chickens. So, what's sad now is that you have these developing, economically developing nations that now want to have all of those luxury items. So you look at all of these countries around the world, and they're now incorporating meat, dairy, and eggs into their diets that was never there before. And now they're experiencing the same preventable diseases. They're experiencing the same diabetes, the cancers, the heart disease. Like they're experiencing all of the same things that are called diseases of affluence, and they're called diseases of affluence because when you eat a rich diet in animal products, there are consequences to that. So sorry, I had to go on that rant because it's just such a misnomer.
That's okay. You're welcome to rant. Joyce, who's watching live, just posted something I was unaware of because I never watch the news, so I appreciate getting it from my audience. Mexico has just banned bullfighting.
Yes, fantastic. So one of the things I do every year at the end of the year is have a good news post. So I did post about that in at the end of 2024. So you can go to joyfulvegan.com and just type in good news, and you will see good news stories from the last several years because those are the kinds of things we need to focus on. There's a lot of good stuff happening because there's a lot of people who care that are working with the decision makers and the policymakers and the gatekeepers to to just create, compassionate policies. So the news is out there. The good news is out there. You just have to go look for it.
Absolutely. Dixie would like to know, do you have any vegan group trips planned?
Thank you, Dixie. Yes, we do. So we're leaving in a couple weeks for Japan. This is our third time doing a trip to Japan, and we sold out in 36 hours. In June, we have France and in the Dordogne region and near Bordeaux. And then in September, we have Croatia, two back-to-back trips. And so those are all sold out. And we just announced our 2026 trips. So we're in the middle of rolling out our 2026 trips. And we just, yes, 2 days ago announced Galapagos and we sold out in 24 hours. So the
That's
trips are
incredible. How many
really
people,
amazing.
how many people go on these adventure trips with you?
It depends on the trip. So Galapagos is small because we have our own chartered yacht. So it's 16 people. And same thing with, no, actually, Croatia is about 25 people because it's a bigger yacht. Um, Japan is 17 people because Japan just does not like large groups. But something like France, or next year we're doing Tuscany and Northern Italy. In Tuscany and in France, in the Dordogne, we have our own villa and we can take over the villa. So it's about 25 people. We don't do bigger than that because we like the intimacy of the small group. So it's usually between 16 and 20, 24, 25 people.
That sounds really incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a gift. And it's just wonderful to just, give people this opportunity and show that this is not about deprivation. It is absolutely about joy and abundance and discovery and connection. And the relationships and the friendships that form on these trips are unbelievable. We haven't had romances yet, but we've had a lot of besties. A lot of people become besties from these trips.
Do you do like what are your daily activities like on those trips? Do you do any classes or lectures or
I
just
do some, but it's mostly about the place that we're in. It's not about me. I'm the host. I'm there with everybody eating dinner and talking. I do a talk and I do a cooking demo, but it's about the places we're at. We were just in Rwanda, so obviously that's about, visiting the mountain gorillas and the chimpanzees and all the incredible places. In Japan, it's about all the culture and all the food. We go to Hiroshima, we're in Kyoto, we're in Tokyo, we're in Kanazawa. So we're going to the geisha quarters. We have a geisha dinner which is amazing with these professional entertainers, professional hosts. The food, Japan is a real foodie country, so we have a lot of the wonderful traditional plant-based food in Japan. When we're in Tuscany, we stay in our own villa, so we just go to all of the medieval hill towns. When we're in northern Italy, we hike in the Dolomites and we go to Venice. So it really just depends on the trip. We just really focus on the culture and the people and the food of that region.
do you get the same people on most of the trips or you get new people each time?
Both. We have 100% return rate for Galapagos. Everybody and Croatia, we have a 90%. So we know everybody on both those trips. But yes, we have a high, I would say average, we have a 40%, 50% return rate. And that's what's lovely. We see, people again and again, but then obviously we always want new folks. So we get them
That,
as well.
that is so cool. So when you go to France, it's kind of like Goudreau in Bordeaux.
I like that. Well done.
Oh, that's terrific. Okay, so when I had a lot of fear sharing my cancer diagnosis with my audience, I felt like I had to be like a superhuman person as a vegan. Have you ever felt pressure as a vegan in your advocacy to be perfect?
I'm so sorry you felt that. And I've been talking about that topic for a long time. I have a podcast and a video on fat shaming and like I'm just all of the expectations that people have on the weight they're supposed to keep and on this perfect health that we're supposed to have and the perfect beauty that we're supposed to have and these perfect muscles that we're supposed to have. And I do think we put a lot of pressure on each other, and I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And it means, I mean, I've told this story before. I don't know if I told it to you, but I remember I was on a podcast many, many years ago. It was a vegan podcast, a vegan podcaster. And in the beginning of the podcast, I said, "Forgive me, I sound really stuffy. I'm just getting over the flu." And she said, "You're vegan. You don't get sick." And I go, "What are you talking about?" If you in any way convey that message to your audience, that is incredibly problematic. We are human. I think. So have I experienced it? Yeah. I mean, you always feel this pressure. Maybe my pressure is more on the food. I want the food to be perfect, right? I want to be the best representative, right? And we are representatives, but we're representatives all the time in our lives. And I want to be the person that someone says, "I'm really attracted to you because of, what you exude, not because of what I look like or how well I am, or, how healthy I am." I want to be seen as the whole person. And I want that for everybody. And so even though it's true, we remain human, I do think in being vegan for me, because it's a manifestation of my values of compassion and wellness, I think I'm the best human I could be. And that's what I compare myself to, not what I should look like, not anybody else, not someone who's slimmer or thinner or fitter, but to who I want to be, right? So again, focusing back on who do you want to be and how can you manifest that? And we just need to be kinder to each other. So anytime we hear ourselves saying something or gossiping about someone in any way, we really need to catch ourselves and think about what that would feel like if someone were saying that about us, if we heard them, and be the person we want to be in the world, be the person whose friend we want to be, like be that person
Yeah.
and be kind.
Yeah, agreed. So Angela says, I have followed Colleen on Instagram for a couple of years. As I began my vegan journey, her content gave me amazing guidance and acceptance, and she helped me take away the feelings of isolation.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a question from Amanda. How do we order from Colleen directly to get a signed copy? I've been putting the link in the chat and show notes, which is to your website where they can order the book, but to get a signed copy, is there another step they have to take?
Yeah, so what link are you putting? Is it joyfulvegan.com/order?
Um, I've been putting ColleenPatrick-Goudreau.com/order.
It's fine. It goes to the same place. So yeah, so that will go to a page that has options for buying the signed copy from me. It goes over to my Shopify store, and then also all the different stores you might want to buy from. I just before we started, the FedEx just dropped off my books. So I'm going down to the garage when we're off the call, and I'm going to be getting the copies that I ordered. I have everything printed out, so they're actually going out like over the next few days. I mean, obviously, if you miss this batch, they're just gonna keep rolling out. So I will be starting to fulfill all the orders that have come in for signed copies. So you can order anytime through Shopify, and I will sign it for you, personalize it to you, and ship it off myself.
That's great. Well, I wish you every success with this book. I've been putting it to
Oh,
chat in the show notes, the link. So just click it. It comes out Tuesday, but pre-orders are always good. And it always helps the whole plant-based community, the vegan community, when you pre-order a book, because it's the first week that really is when, you know, people take notice, publishers take notice. Here's a fun question in the chat from, I love this, well, user 97. What is your favorite meal or dish to make for non-vegan friends? But you can also answer in terms of vegan friends because maybe
sure.
it's the same dish.
Maybe it's the same dish. So I'm such a simple cook. I just love making soups and stews. Like that's probably one of my favorite things. Okay, but no, let me see. You know what it is? One of the favorite things I love making for people is polenta. because people are intimidated by this most basic food that has been a staple in Northern Italian, mostly cuisine for centuries. And it is considered cucina povera. It's like one of the, poor, foods. And it is so simple and yet somehow kind of fancy, feels really elegant. I'm not a huge pasta eater. I don't really love pasta, but I use polenta kind of the way other people would use pasta. So you could put just, a nice marinara sauce over it. But what I love about it is it's just a good base for roasted vegetables. I usually air fry, kale, broccolini, whatever, whatever, and then just put it over the polenta. It blows people away. And also because it's one of the things that you can make within 20 minutes. So a friend could come over and I'll just be like, great, I didn't prepare dinner. I can make polenta for us that fast. So polenta is one of those things that I think really blows people away. And I love sharing that with people.
I love I use the tube, believe it or not. I love the one in the tube. I know there's some plastic on the outside.
No, it's not that. It's just the flavor and the flexibility. So the tube, because it's mostly going to be the sliced kind. So I love the creamy polenta,
I
and the
see.
creamy polenta you can also set up to do the same thing. But I love creamy polenta. But no, it's just so much fresher and just so much better, and you can flavor it so much
Well,
better.
I'll tell you, for convenience, I use this. My favorite thing to make, because I can, if you don't mind, I'll answer this question too. My favorite thing to make for non-vegans, because I was asked to be on an advisory committee for my local hospital, because when I was in the hospital, like literally all I could get was a turkey sandwich on white bread. And in the cancer center, all the options for snacks were string cheese and pudding. So this is what I brought in for them to taste is polenta pizzas. And I did use the tube for convenience. I
Perfect.
make a basil pine nut pesto, and then I put on Kalamata olives and fresh basil and sun-dried tomatoes and roasted bell peppers and artichoke hearts, and I use a balsamic reduction. And like everybody is blown away by this. It doesn't matter if they're a healthy eater, unhealthy eater, vegan or not. So that's why I mentioned the two. But I guess I could learn to make it myself, but I've never done it.
We're gonna do this because again, if it works for you, fine, it's fine. And I'm just curious. So do you like heat up the polenta first before?
Yeah, well, I get it organic at Trader Joe's,
Yeah.
and it's a tube, and then I get 12 slices, and then I just bake it for like 20
Bake it.
minutes. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. No, that's fantastic. And I would say that's one of the things also, one of the things I do for parties for vegans, non-vegans, I make polenta fries. I make the polenta squares that I put. So they're wonderful for appetizers, wonderful for, for a little snack. The creamy is really good for a meal. So you can set up once you make it, it sets up so easily. And then you get exactly what you're talking about. It's cheaper. It's more flavorful and there's no packaging. If it keeps working for you to use your tube, I support you 100%. And I'm still going to send you information about
Okay.
making it.
No, actually, it's funny because I'm leaving in 2 days for Rancho La Puerta, and that's in the recipe thing. And I have a feeling they're not going to allow me to use it because it's a packaged food. So believe me, I'm going to have to learn pretty quick how to do it.
Okay. I'll send you a video.
Absolutely. Well, it's so great catching up with you. It's so nice to see you. You look amazing. This is your eighth book, and let's help this book become a bestseller. There's just so many great tips and tricks, and it's a fun little read. And there's even a few recipes in here, like on how to make some staples, like veggie broth and your own plant milk. And I wish you every success when it comes out on Tuesday.
Thank you so much, AJ. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you.
Right. And so, guys, grab the book now. You know you want to. Take care, everyone. And please come back tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time for The Doctor is In Q&A with Dr. Ron Weiss. He'll answer your questions.